Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez here along with...
Doug.
You sound so soft. Uh, I'm going to warn everybody flat out on this one. I guess we're both warning everybody. Um, the first half hour of the show is all stream of, consciousness, for stream of thought, whatever the case is, whatever just the conversation rolled into. And the first half hour takes a weird turn into freedom of speech and a bunch of other nonsense that we weren't expecting to talk about, but we did. So if that kind of turns you off and like a few minutes into the show, you're like, what the hell are they doing? Fast forward to 32 minutes into the show, probably a little bit more because of the intro, but we deviate, we segue, and have better time. And hopefully you do too. So we'll see what happens. If you listen all the way through, send me a message, either on Facebook, on Twitter, or email. Send them all in and just say, I made it all the way through, because this one was an interesting one. But it was fun.
Oh, yeah.
With that said, we are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under the podcast section. You can also find the show over at Rabblecast.libsyn.com, where it's always uploaded. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Rabblecast. Check us out on Facebook, the Facebook fan page. That's probably where you found this link to begin with. And send us a tweet at Rabblecast, because we don't know what to call it other than tweets and Twitter and formerly known as. And email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. If you have any stories, any recommendations, at the end of the show, we're going to be asking for those as well. So might as well just reiterate it here. Send something in. Let us know what's going on, because we're going to start probably asking for stuff. We'll see what happens. But otherwise, anything else, sir?
No, I have nothing to add.
All right. Well, like I said, this one's an interesting one, but a fun one. So let's get into it. Enjoy the show. Let me compose myself a little bit. It's been a hectic day. How are
I
you, sir?
feel that. I am. That's a very complex question you're asking me right there. I, without getting too deep into the details and mess of everything, I am doing okay right now. How are you, man?
I'm good. I just came off a nice, how do I put this? Enjoyable night. I was going to say relaxing. It really was not relaxing. Last night was my birthday. We went out for dinner. Jen and I, the kids, stayed with my mother-in-law. So they had a little fun running around, having a good time. We went out, had a good dinner, came back, had dessert, got the kids home. Just wrapped it all up. It sucks, and I know you really don't go big on birthdays for yourself, but it sucks when your birthday falls in the middle of the week,
Hmm.
because trying to get anybody together or trying to make plans, it's just like blah. And then on the weekends, forget about it. Like we've got family outings planned as far as birthday is concerned, but aside from that, like just meeting up with people is a lot harder than it used to be back in the day. So
Yeah. Huh.
everybody's spread out, everybody's got their own thing going on. So whatever it comes down to. But it was good. I had a good night last night. It was fun. It was fantastic. I was surprised at work. Some of my coworkers got me a little cake, so I was like, "Oh!"
Nice.
I was genuinely like, I was walking over to the cafeteria. That all of a sudden, as I turned the corner, I see a cake on the table. I'm like, "What the hell?" Because the words "Whose birthday is it?" were about to come out of my mouth. Like, it's yours, stupid. So I got so wrapped up in what I was doing with work that I completely skipped my mind that he would even go for that kind of thing, because I've helped out when other people had birthdays in the lab, pass the birthday card around so everybody can sign it, find out what hopefully they might be looking for as far, in terms of a gift card, whatever the case is, and what kind of dessert they might want. So all said and done, it was nice. I wasn't expecting it. Going out last night with Jen was fun, and I was glad to have a nice quiet evening, I guess you can say.
Okay.
So,
Cool. And yes, and I'd like to also say happy birthday to you there, pal.
no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So isn't yours like January 1st, depending on the profile?
Thereabouts, allegedly.
Depending on the platform.
Depends on the day of week that you're asking me.
Fair enough. Didn't at one point you said, I can't remember which one, but one of them pretty much would not let you change the birthday again because you had already changed it a few times prior to?
Oh yeah, I did that a couple of years on Facebook. Yeah, it was January. Well, no, I ran an experiment. I set it to January 1st. A bunch of people wished me a happy birthday, and then I changed it to February 1st to see how many of those people would wish me happy birthday again. Quite a few did not notice. So yeah, so I got double, and I was just like, God. So I like to think I'm not so much a liar as I'm an unreliable narrator.
That's fine. I did something similar to that a few years back, and let me tell you, I regretted doing it because I felt the most depressed with the results, and that is that I hid my birthday. I was like,
Okay.
I want to see how many people actually like know, rather than, because let's face it, the social media is ubiquitous, so a lot of people rely on the updates, the notifications, and stuff like that on their social media platforms to remember certain things.
Hmm.
So I hid my birthday. My birthday is at the end of the month of September. It's no big deal. And I wanted to see. And a few people, like obviously my family, wish me happy birthday because otherwise I'd be terrified. But next to nobody actually like commented or said anything. And I was like, what the fuck, man? And it wasn't so much like, why don't they recognize me? But it was more like, no, everybody's got their own shit going on. Everybody's, busy with their own things. That if they don't get that little, bell notification on social media to say, hey, you might want to know something. This is going on, whatever the case is, then they just, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And especially if you don't hang out with them on a regular basis, which, again, a lot of our friends are just spread out. So it's kind of hard to keep up with everything. Certain dates you remember, certain dates you hold on to, and you reach out when you can. But especially for friends who are not on social media. So it's just a matter of trying to keep that in your head. But I was like, wow, man, I didn't realize, just like I was not prepared for the negative result that I got. I was hoping like, everybody remembers my birthday. Fuck no. So I was like, wow, okay. So yeah, if you want birthday wishes, if you want people to remember your birthday, then you might want to leave it up on social media. I don't care how private you are, if you're into that kind of thing, and I am. So I like when somebody says, "Hey, thinking about you," kind of thing. That's very nice. Otherwise, turn it off if you just want to be a hermit and don't have to worry about anything, or if you want to make your birthday January 1st or February 1st. Whatever the case.
Listen, one of the few joys I still find in this world is lying on social media as much as possible.
And you can't get flagged for that. Because really, so long as you're not hurting anybody or threatening anybody, you're having fun.
Well, I look at it this way. It's social media. It's a very, do you ever see those games people play where, it's the holiday season. The first, your middle name is this and your last name is this, or your birth month is this, and stuff like that.
Yes.
It took me a while to figure it out. In fact, I think somebody else pointed out to me, it's like, everyone stop doing that, because all you're doing is just offering up personal information about yourself, and there are people out there who are collecting this bit by bit so they can use it for whatever nefarious reasons they can, i.e. identity theft, so on and so forth. So yeah, stop doing that. So I'd like to think if there's anybody trying to collect a profile on me, they're just like, what the fuck? So yeah, I'd like to think I'm doing my part to help prevent identity theft.
Yeah, I've caught on to those early on where I was like, okay, like what's your Lord of the Rings name? What's your Mortal Kombat name? Whatever the case is, they'll have different ones. Your birth month, your first name, your last name, blah blah blah. I sat there, and after a while, I would say, let me see what this is about, and I would start to like do it in my head, but I would never post it just because I'm curious. You want to see what your results are. Like Master McNasty, whatever came up. But it was just nonsense. At the same time, you're like, I really don't need that. Like recently, what was it, like Daughter's Day and Son's Day on Facebook? And
those are things now?
Apparently. and people were posting pictures of their kids. I saw some of my family members put up pictures, and I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not doing that. Like, with our first born, our oldest, we put up pictures more just like for memories kind of thing, just to remember to take a picture at least once a month as he was growing up. With our second kid, we really didn't do that, so I'm kind of like dreading the not too distant future when he goes, hey, what the hell, why is his pictures on Facebook but not mine? Like, look, dude, it's a different time. We were oversharing a little bit. At this point, we're not doing that anymore. So once you're old enough, you can have your own social media account and you can make your own mistakes. Otherwise, we're gonna pull back a little bit. So I think I've mentioned it before in long episodes ago that if it were not for the show, I probably would not have a Facebook account. It was only for advertising the show, posting up the show, and saying, hey guys, here it is. If you want to listen to it, click on the link. Otherwise, I held out on getting a Facebook for the longest time. I let my MySpace lapse. My live journal is far gone.
Live journal.
Yeah, exactly. But I stopped offering up as, voluntary information as much as possible. Like you said, like people are just collecting that information. People can go through your posts, depending if you're private or friends only, whatever the case is, and they'll just you're giving them more and more each time that you post. There was a friend recently who went on a trip out of state, and I almost wanted to say, oh hey, thanks, now I know that your house is empty and somebody can break in, but I didn't want to terrify them. Because that's one of the big things that there was like a story years ago that when people on social media say, oh, I can't wait to go on vacation for a week, we're gonna be in such and such place, or they'll put the little map, traveling from New Jersey to such and such via plane or whatever the case is. And for anybody who has nefarious thoughts in their mind, they can easily say, okay, let me call somebody and go over there. They're gonna be gone for a while. Find out if anybody's stayed behind or if anybody's watching the place. Otherwise, the main tenants are not there. Mm-hmm. There was a number of break-ins due to social media posts of people going on vacation. So you can't do that nowadays. It's just, we live in a different world.
I mean, it's one of those things where unfortunately you just kind of have to be careful of that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. You got to think these kind of things through. And unfortunately, yeah, the less people know, the better. Unfortunately, I hate to say it that way, but it's it's a matter of fact.
On a similar note, one of my coworkers, at one point, he goes, "Oh, what's your Instagram account name?" I'm like, "No, it's better not." He's like, "Oh, come on, man! I want to let's hang out. Let's do something." I'm like, "We can chill. We can hang out. You've got my phone number. So long as we work at the same place together, I'm not gonna friend you or add you on my social media." He goes, "Well, that's fucked up. Why?" I'm like, let's say for any reason you decide that you want to take a day off without telling the boss, or if you go somewhere you're not supposed to on company time and you post about it, I don't want to know. That way I have plausible deniability. Likewise in this in your direction, if I do something and you catch wind of it, it's better that we don't know what we're doing outside of work, right? He goes, "Oh, okay, I see your point."
There you go. Makes sense.
Yeah, because if, let's say, you decide to play hooky and say, "Oh, I'm staying home, fuck this," and you call the boss, I'm not feeling good. The whole sick voice everybody does in the morning.
Yep.
If you are at home saying, "Oh, I'm having fun watching a movie, nothing like staying home, chilling out, sleeping in, blah, blah, blah," and then suddenly your coworker at work is scrolling through Facebook, either on their phone or on the computer, and your boss or somebody else just happens to walk by and say, "Oh, was that Eric? Is he home? I thought he was supposed to be in today. I thought he was sick." Whatever the case is. And then suddenly there's a conversation, there's a phone call, whatever the case. Just not offering up the information. Simple as that.
Okay. Yeah, I do that too also because I'm a little bit, I don't really have a lot of outlets in my world. So I do enjoy posting some patently ridiculous things on social media. And one of the reasons I feel comfortable doing that is because there's so much, there's no way you can connect that with my actual name.
Okay.
And it's not like I'm running around like trolling and, saying, like purposely, scandalous shit or anything like that. It's just very off the wall stuff with a lot of foul language.
Yes.
And you know what? In a way, I do it also because I know, like, here's my entire purposes of social media. I want to see pictures of my friends' pets, some horror movie nonsense, and a couple other random silly things here and there from folks.
Yeah.
And if I could put up something goofy or silly that gets people chuckle at or give somebody a laugh over the course of the day or something like that, then fucking cool. But I'm not debating with anybody. I'm not interested in making that part of my presence or anything like that. If somebody really needs to know anything social media wise, that's why I have what's the business fancy one? I forget.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. There we go. I have a LinkedIn.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your birthday on there?
You don't need to know that.
But no, I agree with you, and that's I've seen your posts. Your posts make me laugh most of the time because you put up a bunch of cool stuff.
Oh, thank you.
But there's a reason. All right, so there's a reason why you don't use your full name on the show. There's a reason why when I put up posts and I talk about what you and I discuss, I'll reference myself in the third person sometimes, because if anybody hasn't caught on by now, I'm the one who posts on Facebook. And sometimes I'll say, oh, the guys talked about this, but I'm referring to us. I don't tag you on Facebook posts for the show because, again, I know you don't want that direct connection. And it's not anything like that we're talking about anything salacious or ridiculous. It's just personal life, professional life, and just whatever you want to call this. It's just silliness. So there's no reason for it to directly or indirectly impact your work life. And let's face it, nowadays, if somebody catches wind of something, if you and I happen to have a conversation about a topic and somebody disagrees and somebody wants to quote unquote cancel you, I don't think we're big enough for that. But let's say if that's the case, they would track you down and find your information and then call your boss, whatever the case is. I worked at a place a few years back where my boss wanted to be a smartass. So he would go on social media and just troll people. He was one of those guys.
Oh, good Lord.
And then he was astonished when somebody called his cell phone and saying, yeah, I'm looking for such and such. This is such and such. Well, yeah, I'm calling about the Facebook post that you just put up. Like, what the fuck? The problem is he had his business page linked to his personal page. He had his personal phone number on his business page. And this person was calling, essentially trying to talk to his boss, which he was his own boss, thankfully, but was trying to essentially cancel him, or at least notify his boss that his employee was a piece of shit. The caller was not wrong. He was a piece of shit. What he was doing was just trying to rile people up on these pages. But when somebody called him out, he was horrified. He goes, how did they get my number? I'm like, did you leave your number on social media? Well, yeah, but for my business page, is your page linked to your personal page? Well, yeah, but that's so I can respond. Well, if you leave them a trail, they're going to find it. It's not hard these days.
Nope.
So we told him, like, put this on private, cancel this, remove that, move this to, admin only, whatever the case was. And for like a half hour on company time, because he ran his own side business, still does. But we told him, like, just turn it all off. Like, if you want business stuff, have it go to your business account. I know you have contacts in the world that are personal and business that get mixed. You can't have that if you're going to be a loudmouth and try to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to be a keyboard cowboy? Be prepared for people to hunt you down nowadays. It's not as easy.
I was going to say, then you better be ready to fucking yeehaw then, motherfuckers.
That's a good point. I should say that next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, he was not ready for the people to come back at him, because he was always just one of those guys who likes to say snarky comments and try to ghost. Finally caught up.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to do that, either cover your tracks very well, because you'd be surprised at how good people are at finding you on social media, finding your personal information. I mean, it's wild. I can't remember the guy's name or what he was doing exactly. But years ago, I remember there was a story about this guy who he was just this massive online troll. If you search out, I think the screen name he used was Violent Acres, spelled with a Z instead of an S. And when they finally found the guy, Yeah, they basically just like sent like here they found that like they tracked him down, they found out who he was, and they basically even like figured out where he worked, and they basically went to the company and said, here's everything your guy says online, and it was like some truly like nasty, mean-spirited shit. And I believe the guy ended up losing his job. But that's kind of just how it works. Unfortunately, you could say that's right, you could say that's wrong, but that's the nature of the beast is in this day and age. Let's see if I can find the story.
No.
What?
No, they're actually looking it up right now. But no, I mean, you're right. While you look that up, if you're gonna just start some nonsense online, don't start with none, won't be none. But some people just can't help it, and they want to be smartasses, and that's what social media has pretty much turned into. Twitter, or the platform formerly known as Twitter, has pretty much done. Like, it just gives people an excuse to be a-holes, and
Oh, yeah.
they love to criticize, they love tear down people, they love to make fun of people, and that's just it. Like, you just get lost in a deluge of comments, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And if you respond, it just gets worse.
Basically, yeah.
It just, if you try to defend your point, or if you try to clarify a point, somebody will just snipe at you and take you out from before you know it, they'll just take the legs out from under you, and you're just like, what the hell's going on? I just wanted to say good morning. What the fuck?
This is why you don't. This is why you don't get any of that stuff online unless you're ready to fucking go.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, like you're just basically setting yourself up for an unpleasant affair. Oh, and here's the story I found. So, the guy's name was Michael Brutch. This is back in 2012. He was a moderator who oversaw several controversial Reddit forums, such as R Creepshots and R Jailbait, under the username Violent Acres.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. And yeah, so this guy was apparently, he released some like identifiable information about the guy. It was picked up by his company, which was, he was a web developer working down in Texas, and they found him out, and his company fired him. But yeah, when I'm trying to figure out. I got a bad feeling about like what. Yeah, this guy was a monster fucking troll. I'm trying to look. I'm trying to scan through here. His specialty was distributing images of scantily clad underage girls.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, but he also, was an unending. I will, to quote, an unending fountain of racism, porn, gore, misogyny, incest, and exotic abominations yet unnamed, all on Reddit.
And if it wasn't for Reddit, or social media in general, this guy would be going about his daily life, working whatever the case is, and just have these interests, but not be spouting them off at everybody else whenever he had a chance.
Yeah, and I mean, also the thing is, if you keep, there's certain stuff, and this is what happens when you have the marketplace like this. Yeah, and this is what people forget in this day and age. Number one, all the First Amendment guarantees is the government can't censor you. It doesn't say shit about private citizens. It doesn't say shit about companies. Anytime I hear somebody crying about censorship on social media, I was like, well, either fucking create your own fucking goddamn social media website or shut the fuck up. There's really no alternatives to this. It is what it is. If you don't like what Twitter does, don't go on Twitter. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. It's one of those things that it just drives me nuts when people just decide that, that freedom of speech is all of a sudden this like massive encompassing thing that protects them at every front. And it's like, no, it just really kind of protects you on the government side of things, and that's about it. And as it's often been described and even discussed, freedom of speech has limitations. I mean, we'll go with the classic example of you can't scream fire in a crowded movie theater. That's how people get hurt.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, this is one of those long ongoing things, and people do all kinds of weird shit. So I don't know. What do you think?
It's just, I'm always a firm believer in, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that last part, pursuit of happiness, do whatever makes you happy, so long as you're not hurting somebody else, or, at the cost of somebody else's happiness. So okay, if you want to troll. I mean, little jokes here and there. I'm a defender of comedy in that respect, where I don't think anything's sacred. Like, I believe just about any topic can and should be deconstructed and made fun of. But
Mhm.
if you're going to be doing it just to be an asshole, like if you're doing it just to hurt somebody's feelings, that's not comedy. That's not funny. That's not cool.
Mhm.
There's a way to be funny without victimizing somebody else. Comedians normally, like when they get together, I don't know if you've ever heard stories, but when they're in green rooms together and before or after shows, comedians are brutal to one another.
I can imagine.
They, whether you're tall, short, skinny, fat, whatever ethnicity you might be, the way you dress, everything. Oh, it's all fair game. They'll make fun of whatever they want when they're in a green room or behind closed doors, because they all know that they're not doing it maliciously. They're all
Mhm.
having fun and just practicing their craft essentially on one another, and that's fine because they can take it. They have a thick skin, quote unquote. But if you make a harmful joke to somebody on social media and they're not ready for it and they don't know what you're doing and they don't know what your quote unquote game is, then you're going to hurt somebody, people get pissed off, and then turmoil starts on social media, and you don't need that. And yeah, I agree, you should be able to say whatever you want, but there are consequences for the things you say and do. So in that respect,
Absolutely.
yeah, like you were saying before, private citizens, companies, if they find that you're being an a-hole and you're under their pay, they're under their roof, you're working for them, you're a representative of that company essentially. And if somebody
Mhm.
tracks down that you work for them, that doesn't look good on them. So they're gonna, the word I say it, almost sarcastically, but the optics of it all isn't good for them. So they're gonna try to cover their own ass and get rid of you or discipline you or whatever the case is. But yeah, there's no reason to be an asshole. I know I
No,
keep saying
and
a-hole, but
yeah, I don't know what you're censoring yourself. I curse
I
curse like a sailor on this damn thing.
so do I most of the time. But yeah, it's sometimes I
Yeah.
try to rein it in. It's more effective
Well,
when I
and
actually say it.
yeah, and actually, I'll take it even a step further. I have an acquaintance who I'm not going to say what organization they work for, but it's a
Make a wish.
nonprofit or no, definitely not. It's a nonprofit organization. It's based in the major city. It's funded by a very famous family, and I'm trying to figure out how much I can say without giving. I know I'm probably safe, but I really don't want to open up too much.
Fair.
But the organization that she works for, and she's head of HR, they have all kinds of clauses built into not their terms of their basically like code of conduct for the company. It's like, you basically need to be on the straight and narrow. You can't be involved in anything that would cast the organization in a bad light. We're internationally known, so if your name is attached to us and your name ends up in the papers for anything scandalous, we're going to terminate you on the spot. And and they're an at-will employment place, so they can sever that relationship, post haste. So yeah, and I do know there are organizations out there like that where it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're not going to, yeah, don't make us look bad, I think is effectively what they're saying. And let's be honest here, for a lot of companies and whatnot, it's not so much about trying to be responsible citizens. At the end of the day, they don't want anything rocking the boat that might affect the bottom line.
Yeah.
I really think that's what it is in most places, because corporations, at the end of the day, have one goal and one goal only, and that's return value for shareholders.
Yes.
So, anybody else who thinks they're doing anything else is pretty much, I think, kidding themselves. If you want to know what the motivation is behind anything a corporation does, all you have to do is look at their fucking, look at their cash account, and there you have it right there.
Yeah, exactly. The bottom line is what it comes down to, and if you're not going to be contributing to it, or you're going to be taking away from it, then they're going to take action. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with that, because whatever you do on your spare time is just that, is your spare time, your leisure time. Life outside of work should not be an open season for penalizing you during work. Like if you go out to the bar and drink on the weekends and you get shit-faced drunk and you go home and pass out, If your boss finds out that you got drunk over the weekend, it doesn't affect anything at work. You're at work on Monday morning, bright and early. You do your job, but they're like, oh, you were drinking over the weekend. That's not very, very becoming of an employee of this establishment. Well, fuck off.
Mhm.
In that respect,
Well,
it's a different story.
I will kind of pose a counterpoint there.
Okay.
Um, some organizations, they need to be, so yeah, something like that where, oh, you want to go out to the bar and have a couple of drinks and get a little tipsy and have a good time. Yeah, I fail to see how that's really an issue. Okay, well, I'll give you, here's another scenario. Say, for example, I'm sure you remember the Charlottesville incident from 2017.
Are we talking about the car that ran over some of the protesters?
Well, that, and I'm basically just talking about the entire rally altogether
Okay.
of having assholes with tiki torches running around screaming, the Jews will not replace us, and blood and soil,
Okay.
which is an old fucking Nazi slogan. And the
Yes.
fact that some of those people running around had fucking goddamn fucking were flying Stalingrads and swastikas.
Okay. Yes, I do recall the ridiculousness of the tiki torches. Yes.
Okay, so if you get outed that you were at that rally and you were running around with your fucking tiki torch and you were involved in some of the fucking assaults there, if that got out, I think it completely makes sense for a company to basically just say, we do not want to be associated with you because now you're taking it to a different level.
Yeah, I agree with
Even to the
that
point
one
of,
wholeheartedly.
yeah, yeah, that one I have a very hard time excusing. Because at the end of the day, you can say it, and you can try to make the, and I mean that also takes it to that higher level where you're not just talking about a political difference or anything of that nature. You're talking about, yeah, do you really want somebody flirting with that kind of fucking extremism?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that really gets to the point where it would even affect like other, like say for example, you wanted to hire somebody and they say, well, I'm gay or I'm black. I really don't want to work at a company that has that kind of people working there. So, yeah, fuck off. So all of a sudden that puts them in the position where it's like, okay, this is now affecting a whole lot of other stuff. And once again, like this all gets into some very complicated areas, but I get the point in some instances.
Yeah, but again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, and it sounds like we agree for the most part.
Mhm.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So long as you're not encroaching on somebody else's happiness.
Mhm.
Those rallies, good example of people trying to fuck with other people's lives, and that's not right. So,
Well, yeah, there we go. Yep.
but if you're, you know, if you want to have a few drinks on the weekend, or if hell, even at night, if you want to have a drink at home, so long as you can,
Mhm.
discipline yourself to that you're going to be ready for work the next day and you're not going to walk in with a hangover, or for that matter, if you're going to be, getting high or whatever recreational drugs you take, so long as you're not going to go in inebriated or unable to perform your tasks as lined out by your company, then by all means, go for it. But if you're going to be hurting other people, if your recreational drinking or use of any kind of drugs is going to be hurting other people, hurting the people that you work with, or hell, even if you get into a car accident on the way to work, guess what? Not cool.
Nope.
That shit, needs to stop. So that's where people are like, oh, it's a free country. Yeah, it is a free country. You can do whatever the fuck you want, but guess what? There are going to be consequences, especially if there's people hurt, property that's damaged. Hell, if your boss just doesn't agree with what you're doing as far as what your tasks should be, and like, where's that report? Well, guess what? Be prepared to be on the unemployment line. Probably not even that, because I don't know what the drinking or drug laws are in the state as far as work is concerned. Like if you can still collect, that's a whole other argument and discussion for another time.
Do they still have unemployment lines?
You know what? I don't think so, because nowadays I think everything's online. A
Yeah.
lot of stuff's shifted, and what happens now is there's no unemployment line necessarily, but there's the unemployment anxiety as you wait for that email to come in and say yes, you're approved, or no, you're not.
Mhm.
And from my understanding, unless you do something that's disastrously, awful on your part, like if you get fired doing some heinous shit, then there's really no way that an employer can really deny you benefits. It's there for a reason. They really don't even call it unemployment now. I think they refer to something else as something insurance. So it's essentially there to bail you out when you're not working for that temporary time. So unless you do something, because you mentioned before, the one friend that you had working at the company being an at-will employee. I mean, that's pretty much, I believe the state of New Jersey is all at-will. So anybody can get rid of you for any reason at any time. So long as it's not discriminatory, age, sex, religion, creed, whatever the case is. If they just up and decide they don't need you anymore, boom, you're done. But you get a chance to collect.
And that's the deal. Unfortunately, and we're not here. Is this all leading into the thing about the Writers Guild finally coming to an agreement with the studio?
I was looking for a segue and I couldn't find one.
Well, how about we just get out of this corner we painted ourselves into?
Sure, I have no problem with that. Hey, everybody, as of September 27th, 2:01 a.m., the writers are back at work. You can tell they don't work for this show because holy fuck. We're over a half hour in, and we've written ourselves into a very weird corner for a non-political show. We somehow went into rules, regulations, freedom of speech. Fuck you.
We're a step away from just reading off state labor laws, man.
I kept looking, especially when you mentioned Charlotte. I'm like, Charlottesville. I'm like, all right, how do I transition this over? Fuck, I don't know. I could have used the tiki torch somehow, but
I wasn't doing it on purpose. I was just kind of rolling with it, and just kind of rambling. So
for anybody listening and what the hell was that first half hour? Hopefully, you're still with us.
Sorry, folks.
But this just goes to show you. My son earlier tonight, when I was telling him that I was going to get ready to record, he goes, "You're doing your show tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you guys going to talk about?" I'm like, "Stuff." He goes, "What kind of stuff?" I'm like, "Buddy, I really don't know." I was like, "I have a few notes that I have to make and take, but aside from that, we just talk about whatever comes to mind." So this is a really good example right here.
Yeah, we just kind of freestyle the hell out of this whole thing. So yeah,
we'll make it a point in the intro to say, "Hey, look, hang in there," or fast forward a half hour in, and you'll get to the point. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but hey, it's kind of, this is the nature of when the podcast is freeform like this, it's the nature of the beast. So
exactly, you do whatever comes to mind, and just that's what it was. But yes, the as you mentioned before, the Writers Guild of America and the studios, the AMPTP. I have trouble remembering what the actual acronym stands for, but the studios in Hollywood have all come down to an agreement. After a bunch of negotiation, and what was 5 months? I can't remember how many days it actually lasted for. But we're looking now at September 27th, 12:01 a.m. Writers are back to work. Now, granted, let me just say this. The deal currently that they're working under is a tentative deal. Everybody reports that it's a 3-year deal. For anybody who doesn't know, it's always a 3-year deal because they always come back and renegotiate every 3 years. It just so happened to be this time around where they didn't line up for negotiations well, and hence the strike. Before we started recording, I was telling Doug I was trying to find information on the deal itself, again, being tentative, but it looks like, let's see here. This is off of a CBS News site. 3-year deal outlines a 12.5% pay increase, starting with a 5% upon the contract's ratification, which the guild now has to do. They all have to vote to say yes, they're going to accept this deal. For the following 2 years, writers will receive 4% and 3.5% increases in the respective years. It says right here, before the 148-day strike, the WGA asked the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, for a 16% raise over 3 years. So they're getting 12.5. They had to negotiate, they had to compromise, but that's one of the big things that they said here. In addition to raises, writers secured a 76% increase in foreign streaming residuals, according to WGA. This will increase the residuals from Netflix from $18,684 to $32,830 for a single hour-long episode, writers will also receive a viewership-based streaming bonus. This is a big one. Between 9,000 and 40,500, depending on the length of the show, or if the streaming feature has a budget of over 30 million. Essentially, their residuals are going to go up, which is a big thing because during the strike itself, a lot of different actors, writers were saying, hey, look, these are the residuals that I get, and I was on a hit show on Netflix. Orange is the New Black was one of them. I can't remember the name of the actor, but when she put up her residual check, it was ridiculously low for what it was. Like, Orange is the New Black was one of the big hit shows on Netflix.
Yeah, that was top rated back in its day about 10 years ago.
Yeah. And the residuals or the royalties for that were next to nothing if you were an actor or a writer. Like, Netflix themselves and I guess the creators of the show probably got the majority of the profits or the income, but everybody else was getting shortchanged left and right, and that's one of the big things for this. This will come out more and more as far as what the information is going to be once it's ratified. Again, tentative deal, so they have to vote on it and say that they all agree that they're going to accept this deal. Because I do believe the studios essentially came out and says this is our best and final deal. That's how they were wording it. It was kind of harsh, to be honest, but you know, the writers held out this long. So the WGA, as of this Wednesday of the 27th of September 2023, are back to work. So the first thing coming back are all the talk shows. They're going to be back, you know, working. All those people are going to be back on set. So like Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers. I don't remember what else is on nowadays. Those are all going to come back slowly but surely. All the other writers' rooms are going to get filled up again. They're going to be going through a bunch of different things. And hopefully we'll get all that stuff back on track. So shows like Stranger Things will get back on track. Actually, no, I take that back. Because this is, all right, so this is one thing I want to mention. So the writer's strike is over. The Screen Actors Guild still happening. Nothing has been reached yet.
Yes.
So the writers' rooms can get back to writes, rewrites, whatever the case is, but they can't go full bore until the Screen Actors Guild gets their deal or gets what they're looking for. And we have to wait and see how that pans out. So yes, talk shows will be coming back because that's the majority of writers, and everything else can go from there. They can have different guests. I guess they're not going to have actors or directors, whatever the case is, because a lot of the projects are going to be stalled out. But that's something also to note as well. The DGA, the Directors Guild, they were able to make their deal prior to all this starting. Then the writers' strike hit, and then that led into the Screen Actors Guild strike. And now there was a talk about, I think it's being voted on, the video game industry is also going through the same thing where they want a bump in pay and residuals and everything else because they feel like they're getting shortchanged. So I believe that one's going to go to a vote, but that one's a smaller industry, I hate to say. So you probably won't hear too much about it, but unless something big happens, they'll probably go on strike themselves, and that'll affect certain video game productions, and we'll see what that turns out. But I don't know. I thought that this was going to be going on for a lot longer. From what it seemed like, they were going to go all the way through the holidays. I'm thankful they didn't, because we heard stories already, and I know we talked about it here, that people were already looking for, housing assistance or rent assistance. Money in general was just becoming very, very, very tight. There was one story of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, donated a 7-figure sum to the, I believe, the Screen Actors Guild to help out. And don't know exactly what that is, but 7 figures is pretty large. So I don't know.
Well, at bare minimum, that's $1 million.
Exactly. So good on him. Like, he's one of the top earners right now in Hollywood. So for him to say, "Hey, I'm going to do this just to help out," I don't think he's doing it for brownie points. I don't think he's doing it to, get his name in the headlines. But he just was trying to help out in general because he's been there. He knows what it's like when you're trying to scrounge by, and especially now with work being taken out from under you. Whatever the case may be, it sucks. So he did his part, helped out. It was up in the headlines for a little bit, then it quickly went away. So because I can imagine with the amount of people in these guilds, directors, writers, screen actors, so on and so forth, that whatever money they do have in the reserve for whatever fund they have for this gets dwindled pretty quickly, especially as the months go on and on. And again, this was 148 days. Yeah, I mean, at the very least,
This is been going since what, early May, I think, is when they when they walked onto the picket line.
Yeah.
So it's been intense, but it's been quite notable this summer because in addition to everything else, there's been an awful lot of labor actions this summer. I mean, UAW is currently on that one strike. God, I was thinking about this the other day. UAW. The Las Vegas hospitality workers are looking to strike as well. And yeah, as you said, SAG is still on strike.
UPS averted a strike.
What's up?
UPS averted a strike.
Yeah, averted a strike, and now UPS, they're getting paid good money, and good for them for going out there and banging away for it.
Yeah, I mean, you go through the years, and everybody talks about. I never heard it referred to this, but everybody was, asking for COLA for this negotiations, and COLA, cost of living. I can't remember what the A stands for in this case.
Adjustment.
Thank you. But I used to work at places where cost of living, was a thing. I mean, was it big? No, not at all. A couple cents here and there, depending on what the year was. But as the time goes on, you get something. My example, I think I might have mentioned it before, my current job does not have cost of living, and I have not had a raise in the past few years. Pandemic is factored into that, but at the same time, as we get back to being busy, it's like something has to be looked at, and something has to be hey, look, you acknowledgement at the very least, like, you're doing a good job and we're going to give you something. When that doesn't happen, you're like, well, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I'm going above and beyond every day. What the hell? So
yep.
The fact that cost of living has been such a sticking point for a lot of these different organizations, more specifically the UAW, as they General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis were the three big manufacturers.
Yeah, I can't remember. They're like they bought up like a bunch of different like manufacturers within the last couple of years. I don't know too much about them.
But yeah, they're talking about cost of living, the pensions. They gave up a lot of stuff back during the recession to try to help the company save money. They shouldered a lot of the different costs. That all, adds up. And then you throw in the pandemic and the fact that people were saying that, oh, inflation, bullshit inflation, more like price gouging. All that shit.
Exactly.
Happened. We have not been getting enough money to cover those changes in the economy. So for that, what do? I'm like, oh, you have to hustle. You have to get a side job. No, fuck you. I work 40 hours plus a week. I'm not getting a side job just so I could have a normal pay income. That's ridiculous. I mean, granted,
it gets to this. Yeah, it gets to this point with everything where it's like, okay, what are we supposed to work? 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week? I mean, at a certain point, it just becomes kind of like a fruitless endeavor,
I do like the fact that at one point they were talking about one of the negotiating points that they have for the UAW was that they want to have 32-hour work weeks, which, to be honest, this day and age, I think is a great idea. I find that funny mostly because I think it was I got this off of like Facebook posts saying that Ford back in the day, car manufacturer, when they first made the T model, it was the Ford company that essentially instituted the 40-day work week, Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So I find it funny now that the car manufacturers are saying, you know what, screw the 40-day work week. Let's have 32. And let's face it, like, you work 5 days a week. Yes, I understand. You got to work for your money. You got to work for your income, whatever the case is. But you give up so much of your time. And then you have 2 days on the weekend to maybe, relax, do things, take care of the house if you're a homeowner, meet up with friends, meet up with family. The saying, where does the time go? Is a very easy one to say because, quite literally, your time is slipping away from you week in, week out. It fucking sucks.
Oh, yeah.
This past summer, I know I mentioned that we had summer hours. So we were working 4 days and getting paid for 5, which was fantastic. I miss it already. We were a little slow, so it was even nicer. But I agree. Like, if we can somehow figure out how to do a 32-hour work week and still get paid for 40, still have that same income, like whatever the adjustment has to be in between, whether that means like a 10-hour work day, whatever the case is, that might be more feasible. So all this stuff going on, the summer of labor, as they were referring to it as, all these different strikes and all these different movements, I'm all for it. Let's shake things up, because leading up to the pandemic and after the pandemic, a lot of different organizations were taken advantage of. And they're, let's face it, once somebody takes something from you, they're not willing to give it back, even when they know they've done wrong. So it's within these people to say, no, we want what's ours, pay us fair, compensate us, and let's get back to work then. Otherwise, fuck off.
Otherwise, yeah, more strikes and yeah, more labor actions. Yep.
I like the UAW, when they first announced their strike, they said they were going to wait until midnight to call out the different places. They had what was called a stand-up strike. So
Yes.
not all the places were going to just walk out and strike. They were going to select certain locations to try to hamper manufacturing as much as possible. What I liked is that apparently somebody, quote unquote, leaked the 3 locations that were going to be going on strike for the stand-up. And when that information was leaked, the different organizations said, okay, let's move our resources to different locations so that we can avoid those places and we can continue production and manufacturing. The leak information was completely wrong. They actually moved all the resources directly to the places that they were going to stand up strike, and they got screwed. And as negotiations have been going on, they've been calling on other places to stand up. So there's been threats here and there saying that if you dare go on strike, you can consider yourself fired. I mean, that's not a good look. So these people are going to get what they want, and you have to negotiate. Are they going to get exactly what they want? 9 times out of 10, probably not. But like the Writers Guild, there's going to be some compromise. There's going to be a lot of talks. Hopefully they can come together, let cooler heads prevail. And again, pay these people what they're worth. Because the other story that came out, the leader for the strike for the UAW was referring to that the prices of cars have been going up. And
oh yeah,
they're not going up because of labor costs. They're going up because they just feel like marking up the price of the cars. So that increase in prices, you're thinking, oh, cars are getting more expensive to be made. No, not at all. That's not the case. Those increased prices are increased profits for those car manufacturers. So somebody done fucked up. But yeah,
it's unfortunate because that's just how it is, though.
It's greed. It's greed, and it's
yeah.
All right. So I agree and disagree. When I used to work in retail, I remember at the end of the week, or excuse me, at the end of end of the week and at the end of the month, you have to do your numbers. You have to figure out what the sheet, balance sheet was as far as how many hours worked, how much money was made to justify staffing and everything else. I get that. One of the things that always annoyed me was they always had last year's earnings. So you always were asked to top, meet or top last year's numbers. Like, I get it. This is, it's retail. It's all money. Capitalism, whatever the case is. But the fact that you were frowned upon, like, oh, you made, $5,000 less than last year. What happened? We didn't have the same, stock. We didn't have the same product. Game releases changed. Whatever the case is, mall traffic has shifted a little bit because of store closures around us. There's a number of reasons why you could fall below what it was last year. But they always put it on management, saying, you're not doing your job. Fuck off. That's, it's not cut and dry. I get it. It's a bottom line that we're looking at, but it's not that simple. So companies want to make more profit each year. I get that. You think if you're doing well enough that next year you can do better. That's an easy sentimentality. So why is it that when an individual who works for these companies can't have that same sentiment? Hey, last year I made this much money. I worked my ass off for you. This year I expect to make this much money because I'm going to continue working my ass off for you. Otherwise, don't expect the same amount of productivity.
My point of irritation always was with that is basically it just kind of sets it up for, well, we must have unlimited growth. there can never be anything other than growth.
And that's the problem. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. If they're going to continue to have growth and not want to continue to pay their workers what they're supposed to be getting with that continuous growth, then what's the point? And this is
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
another personal experience for me. One of my employers a few years back, every year I had my review. Every year it was a good thing. I always look forward to it. They always had to find something to harp on because nobody got a perfect score. That's the way they always looked at it. There's always something you can improve upon, and I get it. I mean, they're trying to nitpick a little bit, but at one point after a few years, they actually said to me, and this I remember this, and it fucking sticks in my head to this day. You have maxed out on raises. Like
That's not good.
you'll still get your cost of living increase, but because of the production floor being what it is, we can't give you more than what you're currently at. So what you're telling me essentially is, even though all the previous years take into account that I've done everything that I can to learn, produce, be better, and excel at my job to the point where I was almost a supervisor, they can't give me another raise. So what you're telling me is I've maxed out my productivity for you because now I don't have to go above and beyond if you're no longer gonna give me an increase in pay.
Yeah, that basically just kind of cuts your legs off of that company, number one. And it's also the thing that also bugs me about companies doing stuff like that is it when one of the most difficult things for a company to lose is what is referred to as institutional knowledge. And that's you can't buy that. That's just comes from when you have people who have been working at that company for a certain period of time. They learn the inner workings of the company, learn how things move, how things work, how things even just kind of like the nature of how the company, because every company has its own unique, weird quirks. And when you do something like that by basically saying like, you're not going to get any more raises, it basically is going to start, it's going to give people less of an incentive to stick around there because I wouldn't if they said you're never going to earn any more money. Well, it's like, well, at a certain point in time, I know I have to start my own job search.
Exactly.
And that's called they fuck themselves in the long run, and they probably don't even realize they're doing it because they're kind of pompous.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what it came down to. And it became painfully obvious that the more, after that, anybody who else they brought in at a lower entry point so that they had that extra room to try to, like entice them to stick around longer. Because at that point, they can give you a pay bump little by little. But once you get to a certain point, that's it, you're done. And it's just like, this makes no sense. So that's even, again, my current job, the same idea. I told the one guy that I was working with today, yesterday, I mentioned to him, I'm like, hey, look, if things don't improve in the next couple months, by the end of the year, I'll more than likely just gonna look for another place. He goes, really? I was like, yeah. I mean, I'm already window shopping. Let's face it, because things here haven't been the greatest. So I have my family and my own needs to keep in mind. If I want to earn, if I want to save, I can't have an employer telling me, oh, I can't give you something this year because things aren't doing so well, only for them to turn around in another meeting and say, well, the company's financially stable. You're saying two different things to me. So when they heard that, my coworker was like, well, I'll be honest with you. If by the end of the year, if you're gone, I might not be here myself. I was like, hey, man, that's your thing. Like, they just started about a month ago. So I was like, good luck to you, whatever the case is. But you're learning the ropes, and you're learning that those ropes are covered in shit. So
yeah,
we'll see.
But sadly, that's kind of where we are in this day and age. But yeah, I don't know. I wish I had an answer for this kind of shit.
I mean, there really isn't. I mean, the one thing I always look at and always aggravates me is that when you go to work, you're giving up that time to somebody else. You're letting somebody else pay you for your time. Nowadays, it just seems like it makes more sense to create something, to do something on your own, and to be able to be your own boss. That was part of the whole idea for us when we tried running the arcade for a while. Run our own business, do our own thing, grow it to the point where we can hope to eventually hire more people and expand and whatever the case was. We never got to that point. But I can tell you that it was exciting being able to make your own hours, live and die by your own word, that kind of thing. And for all intents and purposes, we killed it. Like, we were doing great. It just, unfortunately, that it was a landlord issue with rent
Yeah.
that kind of, took the wind out of our sails, and that was not in our control. That was something we, as first timers at this kind of thing, we had to learn the hard way. So, but if you want to escape that 9 to 5, if you want to escape that grind, I mean, if you're willing to put the time in, there is nobody more important to invest in other than yourself. And with that, like, you just have to be able to put that time in, that effort. It sucks because it takes you away from family, it takes you away from friends. There's no real holidays, there's no real days off. You're constantly having to do what you have to do. And I know I've told Jen before in the past that one of my only regrets running the arcade that one year, because that's essentially how long it ran for, was that we had our first son, and I missed a lot of time with him in his first year because I was constantly at the arcade running stuff. So
Yep.
it's one of the sacrifices that had to be made at the time. But now with our second child, I'm around a lot more. I can see what's going on, and I can see the things that I did miss. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, man. It's heartbreaking in one respect, but now relieving that I'm able to be there for him and for the family. So, but if you want to make it, there's ways to do it. I found one way how not to do it. So I'm hoping the next attempt, which we've been talking about on and off for quite some time now, whatever shape or form that takes, might be better. And I've said this before. This show itself, I would love to be able to make something of this. Like, we have a modest following. We have people that listen and say, love the show, keep doing it. I love the show that it's back, especially that you've come back on to the show. It's fantastic. But I don't know how to go about making the show wider as far as exposure. Like, I can put it on different platforms. I'm trying to figure out how to put it on Spotify. That's just me fumbling with stuff. So long as people are out there and can hear the show, it'll gain an audience at that point. Do I really want a big audience? That's debatable, because again, we're going back to the discussion at the beginning of the show, that if you are exposed like this publicly online, and if somebody wants to fuck with your personal life, that could have horrible repercussions. So,
Yep.
do I like having this? Just, even if it was just you and me doing this and just having like one or two people listen, I wouldn't mind. I don't know about you, but
I'm not too concerned with people listening. I'm more just enjoying the simple fact of the matter that this is kind of like just a nice bullshit session on a Thursday night.
Exactly. I mean, we're reserved in certain respects for what we say because this is being put out publicly. But when you and I would have our little after show talks, it's more or less the same thing. We're just a little bit more open in that respect because we're not concerned about certain things. Like you said, your friend who works at a company, I'm sure if we were not on mic, you'd be able to share that with me.
Yep.
Stuff like that. It's simple enough. Like, I won't name my employer. I won't name my coworkers specifically because don't need that out there directly. I'm not trying to harm or out anybody in particular. I'm just sharing my experience. But yeah, same here. Did I get into this for a big audience? When I first started, yeah, I probably was hoping for something. But as the show went on and on, it just became fun to do it. And I think, it really hit its groove when you and I kept doing it regularly. So with that, yeah, it would be nice to have a certain amount of people listening, but I'm not too concerned with the numbers. When I see the stats on Libsyn, I see them go up, I see them go down, whatever the case is. First 7 days, first 30 days, it gives you different stats. I look at them, I glance at them once in a while, and so long as it's around the same area, I'm like, all right, that's cool. I'm not worried about it. If somebody finds the show, somebody finds it. If not, oh well. It's not going to change what we talk about. It's not going to change how we do it. It just can be what it is. What it is.
Yeah. And also, this is not, we're not trying to be, Mark Maron. We're not trying to be Joe Rogan. We're not trying to be Nerdist. We're not trying to be whatever. I don't even know what podcasts are big in this day and age, truth be told. But yeah, we're enjoying ourselves, having conversations. And if some people enjoy them too, cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. That's why I always say at the end, at the end, and in the intros itself, and sometimes at the end of the show, say, if anybody wants to chime in, feel free. Like Facebook fan page, Twitter, although the Twitter account hasn't been used as much. Um, the email every now and then comes in. They say they like it, whatever the case is. Sometimes they'll say, hey, I really didn't like this part of the show. I'm like, okay, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm not gonna specifically take something out of the show just because one person says they didn't like it. The show
Yeah.
is free. You can download it at your own risk, at your own leisure. Enjoy it for what it is, because I'm not looking to satisfy one person or another. It's just like you said, it's a bullshit session once a week, being able to catch up with a friend, see what's going on, talk about different topics that come through, whether it be comics, movies, games, wrestling, whatever the case is. Last week we spoke about wrestling. This week we somehow got into a weird political quasi freedom of speech debate, and and then we rolled into the WGA, and now we're just talking about what we actually cover. It's what it is, man. It's You never know what you're gonna get every week. It's just maybe a hot topic from the news, whether it be any of those different genres, something that happened in our lives, or just weird stuff. So you find what you find, and if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Not every episode's going to be a banger, but it's going to be honest, at the very least. So,
And and it's also interesting too because it kind of reflects where we both are at that point in time.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like about it. Like, I'll be honest with you, like I don't, I'm not as up on pop culture as I used to be. I'm kind of like falling into my own little universe in a lot of cases where I'm just kind of doing what I want to do. I'm absorbing what I want to absorb. I'm not really kind of like messing around with a lot of stuff, and it is what it is. I mean, so I just kind of roll with it like that. So sometimes I kind of like I'm going back to like, oh, Eric will inform me if anything new is what's going on. So, or what
Yeah,
should I be checking out? Yeah.
every now and then I'll come up with some stuff, and you'll recommend a few things. I know, like a few episodes back, we were talking about some horror movies that we've watched, or certain things to look out for. So, all right, so current event stuff. Jen and I have been enjoying the Ahsoka series on Disney Plus. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, the Ahsoka character from Star Wars Rebels and oh gosh, what was the other one? The previous Star Wars animated series. Ahsoka Tano was a up and coming Jedi, uh, apprentice to Anakin Skywalker before his turn to Vader. There's a whole lore and history there. This now follows Ahsoka as she's out and doing her own thing and missions after the Rebel series. But they've already introduced her during the Boba Fett storyline for Disney Plus. So it's cool to see because Rosario Dawson plays the live action version and she's badass.
No, cool.
And it's awesome to see her just having fun in the role. Like, I can only imagine growing up watching Star Wars and then getting a chance to be in Star Wars, let alone a main character that, you know, wasn't part of the original legacy story, but now interacts with part of that legacy. This past week's episode, spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched it, I'm not going to say how it happens, but as there is a Senate scene happening, and one of the characters is about to get court-martialed, suddenly C-3PO shows up and says he's got a message from Senator Leia Organa. I'm like, ooh, Princess fucking Leia? She,
No, that's wild. Huh.
just 3PO showing up and the mention of Leia Organa, like the nerd in me went, ooh, this is fucking awesome. And it's just been that fun and exciting to see all the different things. So that's one thing we've been watching. The other thing I caught, I'm starting to catch up again last night, and I know when I was doing the solo shows, I referred to on Netflix. There's a anthology series called Love, Death, and Robots.
Okay.
It's just weird, like little. Some of them are like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever the case is. They're little contained episodes, sci-fi. There's quasi horror, comedy, different things, and it's just all like some at live action, some are animated, some are computer animated. It's a fun little series to check out. I was watching a few episodes last night. And then now I'm starting to delve into the Cyberpunk 2077 series. There was a game that came out, was like 2 years ago, I'm going to say.
Longer than that. I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
I think you might be right, yeah. From CD Projekt Red. It was riddled with bugs and glitches when it first came out, so it got a horrible reception upon initial launch. But CD Projekt Red did everything that they needed to update the game, get it up to snuff, and eventually it became a gem. It's very polished, and they're about to drop their new DLC called Phantom Liberty, I believe. So the launch game had Johnny Silverhands, which was played by Keanu Reeves in the launch trailer and in the game. You can actually go up against Johnny Silverhands. And then later on, now in the new DLC, Idris Elba plays a character.
Oh, nice.
So they're bringing in a bunch of different people. I want to play the game. Jen bought me a copy for the last gen Xbox. I never got around to it. My new Xbox doesn't have a disc drive, so I'm kind of SOL. I have to buy the actual game at this point. But
wait a minute, it doesn't have a disc drive?
You sound so old when you say that.
It's a fucking video game system, man. They just want you to fucking buy it and download it?
The Xbox One, we had the ones with the disc drive. I should say they were standard with disc drives. The Xbox, which one is this? I'm looking around for the actual unit itself. The current Xbox X and S series, excuse me. The S series does not have a disc drive. It has a hard disk so you can save your game data and profile, but no physical game disc because everything is going the way of digital. So just download the game, hold on to it, whatever the case is. If you delete it, at the very least it shows that you purchased it in the past, so it's always available to download again, unless something crazy happens. The X series, which is the slightly bumped up spec version of the Xbox S, has a disk drive that allows you to play physical media and download as well. At the time, the X series was kind of hard to find when Jen bought it for me for Christmas, I believe. So I was fine with it because, like, hey, I can play more Xbox. At the time, I was playing Call of Duty. Didn't matter to me. But now I'm like, fuck, I've run into that moment now where had I had a disc drive, I wouldn't have to buy a new copy. I would just pop in the disc, wait for all the downloads to happen, then I could play Cyberpunk. But that's not the case. So, yes, this one does not have a disc drive. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I did not know that, but honestly, I do not. I play everything right now on my PC. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't really. Well, which is funny because for my PC gaming, I buy everything through Steam and I just play it on there. So basically, I play a game and when I'm done with it, it's like, okay, let me delete it so I'm not completely blowing out my fucking hard drive.
Exactly. Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
I'm actually considering buying a Steam Deck. Our friend Dan bought one, I believe, last year, and he brought it over, and he has like little mods on it and different software on it, whatever the case is. But being able to hold it in my hands, and he brought it over, and I was playing Street Fighter 6 on it. And not only are the controls like manageable, like I can actually play on this thing, but the whole setup it's a more souped up version of a Nintendo Switch. So it's very nice. The interface is user friendly. It's very robust, and I was like, wow, it's about $400 to $500 for the hardware, and it's a portable system, but I could play a PC level game on it. So I was like, okay. This might make sense, for the next few years, because at this point, I play my Xbox at home every now and then. I have a PlayStation, was it 4? I really haven't touched it. I have a handful of games I have to get back on there. I have a Resident Evil, a Spider-Man game that I'm literally at the final boss. I just haven't gotten back to playing it.
I'm assuming it's a Spider-Man from 2018.
Yes.
And it's the battle with the final boss is Doc Ock.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm right there where when you're about to go through the door, it says, this is the final battle you're coming up on. Once you go through this door, there's no saving past this point. I'm like, oh, okay. Then let me do all the side missions and everything else first. But, I don't have as much time to sit down and play the games as I used to. I even gave up Call of Duty after a while because once they went to the newer version of it, and they're like, oh, buy the new copy. I'm like, no, fuck you. I was having fun playing it for free. So it was just a fun thing to do on leisure time, just to kill a half hour before going to bed or whatever the case is. Or on the weekends if I had some free time, which is less and less nowadays. But if I take a Steam Deck with me, if we go out someplace, or if I'm, we're on a trip, at the very least, I would have something available to me. Hell, I could even take it to the bedroom if I have to, and then just lay down and play it there. I'm not confined to the living room only, or confined to my laptop. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm debating on that one. It would be a nice thing to have. I'm not. I've got other important things to take care of before I splurge that much money on another console. So we'll see. But
Yeah, $500 is that's some major coin to drop right there.
exactly. Along those lines, though, because I was mentioning Cyberpunk, so you have the game, which was released a while back, now much better. The DLC, which is being released, I believe, soon, if it hasn't already been. On Netflix, there is a show called Cyberpunk 2077 Edgerunners. And it's the story of this boy named David Martinez and in Night City and all the BS he has to go through and the crap he has to deal with at school because he's an outsider and like it's a fancy school and somehow his mom is like paid him his tuition to get him in there, but it's really difficult, so everybody looks down on him because he's trash. He starts running into a bunch of different gangs, and of course, because it's cyberpunk, they start getting mods and different things implanted into their bodies, and now they're pulling off jobs, robbing people, interacting with other gangs, and some of the what they refer to as the corpos, the corporate executive branch of Night City. So it's fun. It's like anime style, very quirky, very funny. Just an extension of Cyberpunk, the game itself, which in response they put DLC into the game for Edgerunners. So the characters that you see in the anime are actually in the game itself.
Okay.
And then the other day I downloaded an audiobook, Cyberpunk 2077, book called No Coincidence. And it's a story about another group, an impromptu gang that gets together, pulls off a job. The ramifications of that job come back to bite them in the ass, and now they have to deal with the gangs and the corpos and everything else. So it's just another story told in Night City with, the backdrop of the game world. So I was like, all right, I'm slowly immersing myself into it. Like people immerse themselves into Dungeons and Dragons, I'm slowly dipping myself into Cyberpunk, which for me is more apropos. I love wizards and fantasy and dragons, but tech and Cyberpunk, for me, it feels like a more easy fit.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
anything you're currently checking out, whether it's old or new?
Um, so because it's on its last legs, a few months back I picked up the Friday the 13th game on Steam for like $2.
Okay.
So I've been playing it offline mainly, just kind of messing around with like playing with the bots and like playing some of the scenarios and stuff like that. But every now and again, I was like, let me see if I can raise up a group to play in. And holy crap, has that game gone completely off the rails.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I was actually the other day I was playing and I went in and yeah, and I spawned as Jason and I realized when I started in Jason's cabin, there was another Jason standing next to me. So there were two Jasons running around, and I think at the end of the game, it said you killed 16 of 32 people in the game. So I was like, where the fuck are all these people coming from? Because yeah, people just keep coming through and through and through and through, and wow, it's buggy as hell. It's completely gone just cuckoo bananas. So it's actually kind of fun in its own weird way.
Okay.
Just because it's gone so wild like that. So I don't know. I'm kind of just holding in a holding pattern right now because so we're coming up on October. I belong to a Facebook group where basically the entire thing we do is everybody in the group, you try to watch a horror movie a day every day for the month of October. And then you post up what you watched, and everybody else does too. So everyone's just kind of like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I've been meaning to watch that. How is that? Or, oh, hey, that movie's awesome. It's so fucking cool. Somebody else checked it out. So it's a fun way to kind of bounce between, because I'm already like lining up in my head, like, okay, there's a bunch of new stuff I want to watch, and also there's some classics I want to revisit and stuff like that. So like I watch it a lot of horror to begin with, but now it's time to like really start like gearing up to get into some good stuff. So I've been checking that out. And also, do you remember the animated series Castlevania on Netflix?
Yes.
I believe the new series or the new season dropped within the last day or two.
I believe it was today, yeah.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be, since they wrapped up the whole story with Alucard and Trevor Belmont and Saifa Belnades taking on Alucard or taking on Dracula for the murder of his wife and all that stuff. I believe that this is going to be like a whole different time set with a whole different Belmont and all that. So, yeah, I'm gonna check that out because I'm a big fan of it. I love the animation style for it.
I think I watched the first. How many seasons is it now?
The entire saga that they did ran, oh, holy Hannah, 4 seasons.
4 seasons. I think I might have stopped at the end of two or midway through three. I can't remember. All I remember was when Dracula's castle was being transported to another point in time. One of his, I guess, lieutenants. She was like starting to turn everybody on one another or on Dracula, and there was like chaos just going off in the castle itself. So, and that was before the big battles or anything else happened. So I
That
definitely have
was
to get
somewhere in
back to it.
season 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm definitely behind. I need to go through and catch up. Another thing that I've been catching up on, Archer on FX.
Yes.
It looks like they're finally wrapping up that show because it looks like the final season. And for anybody who hasn't been watching, some of the characters, some of the voice actors who voiced the characters have long since passed away now over the seasons, and some of those characters have been written out of the show. So it looks like now this current season that they're, I think, close to the middle of, they're actually going to be wrapping it up after the season. It looks like. So
Yeah, I do believe this is the final season of the show, and it had a good run because that show started in 2009.
yeah,
So that's a good 14 years. I'd say that's pretty damn good for an animated cable show that's so fucking quirky.
if you watch the first few episodes, you're like, no way this goes the long run, but it does. It really, really does. And the different reinventions they try to pull off. So they had the one like what was the Miami Vice themed
Oh,
one,
Archer Vice.
Archer Vice. They had the one where they were on the Treasure Island. They had the other one that was set in space, and they were like all these Archer Noir, whatever the case was. They were all delusions of the character Archer at a certain point in time due to certain events in the show, and now they're all bringing it back, and it's all playing out. You're like, what the fuck was I watching? What the hell is going on? It was almost like a fever dream. Yes, it was, and now it looks like they're gonna wrap it all up, and it's weird. Like you said, 14 years out of that, I don't think any of them thought that that show was gonna run that long, but I'm sure they all got a fat paycheck at the very least to be voicing those
I
characters
would
for so long.
I would hope so. I do know Woodhouse, the character who was Archer's butler, he passed away years ago, unfortunately, at this point. I can't remember
Mm,
the gentleman's name. And I do know the voice of Archer's mother, Mallory Archer, Jessica Walter, I think her name was. She passed away as well within the last few years.
yeah, unfortunately. So they've
Yeah.
they've made changes to the storyline accordingly, and it's affected the way that things are going now. So if you get a chance, I'd definitely recommend that one because that one's always fun. Like you said, quirky. So if it's not your sense of humor, trust me, within the first 5 minutes, you'll know.
That's one of those ones. There's a ton of stuff I like on Hulu that I want to watch. I just have to get myself to spring for I'm spoiled at this point. If you're going to be like, well, you have to watch it with commercials, I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, no, it's not great when that happens. Eh, Somehow advertising still gets in the way. I now am slowly and but surely appreciating friends like Kelly, our mutual friend of ours, who
Yeah.
loves reading, and I can honestly see why more and more as I get older. I mean, yeah, you're getting more detail, more descriptions of the characters, the settings, but I'm not getting interrupted with commercials. I'm not getting advertisements. I'm not, getting other BS sold to me while I'm reading the book, or in this case, listening to the book while I'm at work. It's just a fun experience in of itself. There's nothing else required. And if you
Yeah.
want to get the next book in the series, or if you want to get another book, whatever the case is, that's a different story entirely. So I've been enjoying my Audible account, listening to books that I've been meaning to read eventually myself. But hell, if I'm going to be at work and doing mundane tasks over and over again, now's as good a time as any to listen to some stuff. And I think I mentioned, I listened to Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, The Picture of Dorian Gray. For some reason, I put myself through the torture of 1982. And wow, that's a fucking depressing book.
1982. What's
uh,
that?
uh, oh gosh, Orwell, I believe.
Oh, 1984.
Is it 84? They get the
Yeah,
years wrong?
1984. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, see? But the idea of thought speak and everything else, and just being censored, and you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. You're always being watched by. Oh my god, that whole book was just fucking driving me nuts. I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong, but it's such a bleak outlook that yeah, I can see why people are saying that. Oh, nowadays it's so Orwellian. I get it now. I understood it before, but now I have a very clear frame of reference for that subject material, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's we're not too far from that, and that's terrifying in certain respects. So, but yeah,
I've been I recently went to a bookstore north of me, this nice little independent bookstore I found in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and I picked up a book which is a collection of ghost stories and legends based around different regions of Pennsylvania. So I've
oh,
been digging around in that book as of late as well.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what else. I have to go through my wish list, but I know I've been listening to. So because you mentioned that, Audible, the way Audible hooked me is they did a dramatization of Neil Gaiman's Sandman,
Oh, okay.
and they had a lot of different voice actors that I was familiar with, and it was really cool to listen to them portray the comic book that I read. If you watch the Netflix series, they made certain changes to the Netflix series, the storyline, the characters, whatever the case is. They had to do it to be more modernized with the times, because those books came back what in the 80s, 90s,
Yeah,
somewhere around that
that's right.
area.
Late
So
80s into the early 90s, I believe.
they had to change things up a little bit. If you want a closer adaptation of the comics, the Audible audio presentation is the closest that you're going to get. They made a few changes here and there, but nothing that's going to take away from the story. If you've heard it before, James McAvoy plays Dream or Morpheus. Kat Dennings is Death. I'm trying to remember who Merv Pumpkinhead was. Oh, Kevin Smith plays Merv Pumpkinhead.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Patton Oswalt is the Raven that Morpheus sends to the land of the living. I think it was Matthew the Raven, and just a bunch of other people just come in and play. Who was the villain from the first Wonder Woman movie? I can't remember the guy's name. Who played Ares?
Oh, wait a minute, the actor?
Yes.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
Fuck, I can't remember. He's always in very prominent movies. Wonder Woman was one. He was one of the professors in Harry Potter. He plays Dr. Destiny in Sandman, so he's got that British accent. He just sounds very devious when he's in the diner scene. The diner scene alone, if you're familiar with the diner scene from the first trade of the Sandman books, when Dr. Destiny is just taking over the world with the Dream Ruby, that is all played out with different voice actors, and they make some of the scenes very chilling, especially for audio presentation. Just like, what the fuck? So they were offering that one for free at one point after a few months, or I think after a year that was available. So I said, what the hell, I'll download it, listen to it. I got hooked. The next one came out, I paid for it, and since then I've been amassing credits. So now I'm looking for different stories or different books that I meant to read or look interesting to me at this point. Yeah, just going from there. So if we come across recommendations, we could do that. No problem. See what's
Yeah.
going on, and let everybody know. And for anybody listening, if you have a recommendation, send it in at rabblecast@gmail.com. Like I said, if you want to be part of the show, let us know what you're listening to and what's going on. Whether it's an audiobook, an actual book, movie, comic book, whatever the fuck. Just be part of the show. So, but I do believe that after our freedom of speech rant and, and going over to the WGA, which they are back to work, after all this is said and done, I do believe we have put our time in for tonight. How do you feel?
I feel like we put in a good show tonight, minus our wacky ramblings. So
You can blame the writers, of which
or
there are
lack
none.
thereof.
Yeah, exactly.
We're our own writers, so we were fucked from the word go.
There you go. Well, as we say every time, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. My name is Eric Hernandez, along with
Doug.
Thank you for listening. We are the Rabblecast.